close your eyes for a moment. Picture walking through a doorway, and suddenly, without explanation, without reason, you feel like you've come home. Not to a home, but home. The kind of home that exists somewhere between memory and dream. That's what happens when you step into a mid-century Barndominium. And here's the strange part. You've never lived in one. You've never even been in one. So why does your chest tighten with something that feels suspiciously like nostalgia? Why does the air feel familiar? Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you will change how you think about the spaces we inhabit, and why some places choose us, rather than the other way around. There's a peculiar alchemy that happens when you combine two things that shouldn't work together. Rusted metal and warm wood, industrial bones and soft, vintage hearts. The Barndominium, a barn converted into a living space, has been around for decades. But somewhere in the collision between mid-century design and agricultural architecture, something magical occurred. Something that defies logic and speaks directly to a part of us we didn't know was listening. Let me paint you a picture. You're standing in what was once a structure meant for livestock, for hay bales, for tractors sleeping through winter. The bones are honest, exposed beams that have weathered seasons, metal siding that remembers rain, concrete floors that have known work, real work, the kind that leaves marks. But then there's the furniture. A low-slung sofa in burnt orange, a teak credenza with tapered legs, a starburst clock on the wall, pendant lights hanging like golden tears from the cathedral ceiling. And suddenly, this barn isn't a barn anymore. It's a time machine. It's a feeling you can walk through. Here's what doesn't make sense. Mid-century modern design born in the 1940s through the 1960s was all about the future. It was optimism made tangible. Clean lines, function over ornament, the belief that good design could make life better, simpler, more democratic. It was suburban homes with big windows. It was believing in tomorrow. Barns, on the other hand, are about yesterday. They're agrarian. They're rooted in soil and sweat. They're practical structures born from necessity, not aesthetics. They smell like earth and memory. They're what our great-grandparents knew. So why, when you mash these two opposing forces together, does it feel like the most natural thing in the world? Why does a space that combines the optimism of the future with the honesty of the past feel like the present moment we've been searching for? I think it starts with scale. Barns are big. Not mansion big. Not look at how much money I have big. They're big in a way that makes you feel small but not diminish. When you stand in a barn, you're aware of the sky, of volume, of air moving around you. The ceilings soar, and something in your chest does too. It's the same feeling you get in a cathedral, except without the religion. Or maybe it's a different religion, the religion of space itself, of breathing room, of being able to exist fully without apology. Asterisk mid-century furniture understands this space in a way Victorian pieces never could. A chunky Baroque armoire would suffocate in a barn. But a sleek mid-century sideboard, it knows how to share the room. It knows how to be beautiful without demanding all the attention. The furniture sits low. It's grounded. It lets the space breathe. And in that breathing, in that generous relationship between object and air, you find room for yourself. But here's where it gets deeper. Mid-century barndominiums don't try to hide their history. The wood beams show their knots and cracks. The metal might have rust bleeding through like watercolor. The floors might be uneven, settling into the earth beneath them. And instead of covering this up, instead of pretending the building just materialized yesterday, the design leans into it. Asterisk that teak dresser, with its warm honey glow, it's aging too. The leather on that Eames lounge chair is developing a patina. These aren't things trying to stay young. They're things growing more beautiful with time, in conversation with a structure that's been having its own conversation with weather and seasons for 50, 70, maybe 100 years. Asterisk this is why it feels like home. Because it's honest about time. We live in a world that's terrified of aging, that treats wear as failure. But walk into a mid-century Barndo, and suddenly the scratches tell stories. The fading paint is poetry. The warped floorboard is a reminder that things can bend without breaking. It gives you permission to be imperfect too, to have your own cracks and knots and still be worthy of taking up space. Now, let's talk about light. Because this is where the magic really happens. Barns were built with function in mind. Big doors to move equipment, windows placed for practical reasons. But when you convert that barn into a living space, when you add those massive mid-century windows, when you let light flood in from unexpected angles, something transcends. Asterisk mid-century design was obsessed with light. Those architects and designers believed that connecting indoor and outdoor space, that blurring the boundary between inside and outside, that this was essential to human well-being. They weren't wrong. Light moves through a mid-century barndo differently than it moves through a traditional home. It's dramatic, it shifts. In the morning, it might slice across the concrete floor in geometric patterns. In the afternoon, it might set that orange sofa on fire with gold. At dusk, it retreats slowly, gently, leading shadows that feel like companions rather than threats. Asterisk this dance of light creates mood without trying. It marks time in a visceral way. You don't need to check your phone to know it's 4 p.m. You can feel it. The light tells you. And in a world where we've become increasingly disconnected from natural rhythms, where we work in fluorescent boxes and sleep in rooms sealed against the night, a space that lets you feel time passing, that lets you exist in dialogue with the sun. It's profound. It's grounding. It's home in the deepest sense. Let's talk about color for a moment. Mid-century palettes are specific. Harvest gold, avocado green, burnt orange, teak brown. That particular shade of turquoise that seems to contain both ocean and sky. These aren't trendy colors. They're not what's in right now. And yet, when you see them in a Barndominium, they feel right. They feel like they've always been there. Asterisk here's my theory. These colors exist in our collective unconscious. Even if you were born in 1995, even if your childhood home was beige and gray, these colors live somewhere in your DNA. They're the colors of your grandmother's kitchen. Even if you never knew your grandmother, they're the colors of roadside diners and old motels and record stores that no longer exist. They're the colors of optimism before cynicism became cool. And when you see them in a barn, against weathered wood and industrial metal, they don't read as retro. They read as essential, as true. Asterisk the barn provides the neutrality, the grays of metal, the browns of wood, the white of plaster. And the mid-century colors sing against that neutrality. They pop without screaming. They're warm without being saccharine. They make the space feel inhabited even when it's empty. Like someone who loves life lives here. Like laughter has happened here. Like this is a place where you could be yourself, completely, without translation. Here's something interesting. Mid-century barndos often feel more alive when they're sparsely furnished than traditional homes do when they're packed with stuff. This defies logic. Emptiness should feel empty. But in these spaces, less really is more. Not as a design cliché, but as a lived experience. Asterisk maybe it's because the architecture itself is so present. Those beams, that volume, those textures, they're the furniture. The space doesn't need you to fill it with things to prove it matters. It already matters. So, when you add just a few carefully chosen pieces, a sofa here, a plant there, a lamp in the corner, each object becomes important, precious, almost. You notice it. You appreciate it. It's not competing with 30 other things for your attention. Asterisk this is the opposite of how most of us live. We accumulate. We fill. We distract ourselves with stuff. But a mid-century barndo teaches you about negative space, about rest, about how emptiness isn't lack its potential. It's an invitation. And somehow, standing in all that intentional space, you remember how to breathe differently, deeper, slower, like you've been holding your breath for years, and finally, you can let it out. There's also something about how these spaces make you want to gather. The open floor plan, which mid-century designers pioneered, works differently in a barn than in a suburban ranch. In a ranch, the open plan feels democratic, egalitarian. In a barn, it feels communal. Tribal, almost. Asterisk the kitchen doesn't hide. The living area doesn't separate. There's no formal dining room that only gets used twice a year. Instead, everything flows. You can cook while talking to someone sitting on the sofa. You can eat at the table while someone else reads in the chair by the window. You're together, but not on top of each other. There's intimacy without intrusion. Connection without claustrophobia. Asterisk this is how we want to live, isn't it? This is how we imagine home when we're away from it. Not separate rooms for separate functions, not walls dividing us into categories. This is work. This is rest. This is family. This is alone time. But rather, a space that holds all of you, all at once, where you can be productive and relaxed, social and solitary, where the boundaries are soft and the transitions are gentle. And then there are the details,